Hello there, welcome back. I'm now going to look at Bullet Train films, or the two Bullet Train films. So you have the Bullet Train, which is just produced by Eureka, and you have the Brad Pitt Bullet Train. I think I've covered the Brad Pitt one briefly, like in the past, like very, very briefly, but I don't think I've done it in any real detail. I don't see why I would. And this one I've just seen, so I've been wanting to see this one for a long time, but I'm quite glad to have finally seen it. Now, both of these are genre films, and neither of them are works of genius. Both of them are very enjoyable, though. Both of them, but for very different reasons. I mean, the 70s Japanese Bullet Train is more of a character study and more of a police procedural. It's much more like the taking a Pelham 123 than, you know, what we get later. And the Bullet Train from America, directed by David Leitch, is a big kind of silly kind of Guy Ritchie influenced film that's very enjoyable. So it's just very different. It's one's a cartoon and one's a much more realistic one. So the first one, the Japanese one, is directed by Junya Sato and stars Ken Takakaru, who is plays the guy who's the Mad Bomber. Sonny Chiba shows up as well in this one, but he's only on it for like 20 minutes. He's the guy who's doing the train. He's actually the train driver. So you go back to him once in a while, but it doesn't accumulate too much. He probably shot his scenes in a week or something. I mean, that's the thing about Chiba. Chiba could be such a star. I mean, get him for a week for film, and he's still putting the poster saying, like, we've got him, you know. And the thing is, he commits to whatever film he's in. He will commit. So you always, it's never a bad decision to put him in even a smaller part. The Bullet Train film is pretty much a product of the 70s because it is really about the idea of what leads someone to put a bomb in a bullet train. The film Speed from the 90s, starring Keanu Reeves, bit of Jan de Bont, took some of the ideas from this one. Although the writer claims it was influenced by Runaway Train. But this one is directly the same thing. If it goes under a certain, there's a bomb on a train. If it goes under a certain speed, the train blows up. It's Speed. But Speed took in a bus and put them in traffic, which is a completely different thing and a really great innovation. So even though there might have been an influence, it still was an influence where they took it and did something really interesting with it. In this film, you get the problem of the train not being able to slow down and other trains being cleared of the way for like 20 minutes of the film. It's not that big a deal, and it's not really, it's like one changeover from one track to another. That's all you get with that kind of thing. So it's not like it's exploiting that idea for anything scary or overly dramatic. Most of it is the idea of why these guys did this, who they are, and how the police are trying to track them down. The actual train part of it's actually the least important part of the film. That's the bit that as the film goes on is less interest to the director, it seems. So basically, it's a look at Japan in the 70s where a lot of places have shut down. The country's industrialized so that everything's been centralized to bigger companies. So if you have a smaller company who's creating parts for something bigger, like the bullet train, you're going to get shut out and they're going to just do it themselves. So it's about this guy who ran a factory that's been shut down, and he lost his wife because of his anger and because of the social shame of it all, and basically now living by himself. He has a few friends who are also angry young men. Even though this guy's older, the guys around him are like people who are like political idealists who have been disenchanted by capitalism. You've got another guy who has anger issues, and it's just a bunch of like people who are, have difficulties in life, and basically because they created this part for the bullet train, they realize how to exploit it to actually hold it to ransom and collect ransom and disappear. And basically, the plot is how all the different things they do to get the money go wrong. Whether it be from the government trying not to give them money until they prove themselves to be dangerous enough for this to be a threat. When the government finally caves, the police are still trying to catch someone and do the drop off. And it's how these things go wrong slowly but surely, and how these little points of conscience for them, where they actually do want to give once they have the money, they are going to give the government the instructions how to stop the bomb. They're not completely immoral, but those things go wrong, and how they actually get the money is much more difficult than they expect. And so there's a lot of complications the film really goes into. That's what's actually the interesting part of the film. It's like, why are they doing it and how they're going to get the money is the more interesting than the actual bullet train section. Bullet train section's fine, but once you've seen people panicking a train that's going really fast for a certain amount of time, there's nothing new there. And the filmmakers know that, so they just let it, go. And it's like, okay, we know what's going on there. This bit's more interesting and probably a lot less expensive. So they're going through Tokyo and different cities and things, trying to figure these guys out, try to find out who they are, what they want, and how to stop them, how to get them the money, because there's a limit, because Japan's not that long, it's not that big. It has to go all the way through Japan. Like, we can stop. Basically what happens is it's going to come to the end of the line eventually. So they've got till the night time. They've got all day to actually get them money and get the plans how to stop it. And so that they have like difficulties with people, like just mistakes happening as they try and give away the money, and there's mistakes happening, and it shows the ingenuity of the bombers, but also shows their desperation and their need and the sense of what they're losing as they try to escape, and how smart they are. Like, they get caught for things that they planned fairly well. It's just that life is cruel, and in these films, they're not going to get away with it. It's like, that's the thing, is you can't really do a film like this and let them get away with it. They have to actually be caught. Which is why it's much more like the Teen of Pelham 1, 2, 3, where it's you do have some sort of, you have sympathy on both sides. You can see why some people are doing it, but also like how weak some people are. Some people are professional, some people aren't in Pelham. And this one is, they're all kind of professional in a different trade, but here they're trying to make money and they're in over their heads. So it's like a tragedy that's ongoing with them, that you're just watching the train crash, and them try to push their abilities as far as they can go, and you see tragic consequences bit by bit as things go wrong, as lots of things just slowly go wrong. And also them trying to escape from bad situations shows their perseverance and how difficult it's for them, and they're trying to escape the police constantly. So you're kind of on their side to some degree. Then, of course, you always remember, oh yeah, they're trying to blow up a train. So you have a kind of, you feel for them for the problems, but you also know they're doing tomorrow. So you know they can't get away with it. So you know it's a tragedy in the making, ultimately. And as the film understands, the film really goes with. So by the time you get to the end, they're trying to stop the bomb, it works because you know that's the right thing to do, but you also can see how the lead characters they've been following have failed in their lives and how tragic it all is. So it covers all the bases, also shows you how difficult the situation is for the people trying to manage it. Like the guy in charge of the train system, as he realizes how messed up his own people are and the police are, and how mismanaged a lot of stuff is he quits at the end. He can't continue. So there's lots of pathos in different areas. So this is definitely recommended. It's too long though. It's 2.5 hours long, and it's too long. But it's like, you don't really mind it. It's one of those things that you feel it's too long, but there's nothing there that actually is too offensive to you. It's like, yeah, it's still enjoyable. Now we're going to Bullet Train, which is a Brad Pitt vehicle. Directed by David Leitch, who directed Deadpool 2 and helped direct John Wick, and he's done a bunch of stuff. And this is basically one of those films that came out, people enjoyed, and then they moved on. But it's one of those rewatchable films. It's just basically a fun film you watch. It's like 90 minutes, 100 minutes, and then you move on. It's like, it's knowingly silly. So the idea of it is, all these guys, all these all these different criminals are on a train, and they have to get this suitcase. So they're all vying for this suitcase. So you have, Yakuza guy whose son's been injured. You've got these two British guys who are on the train who are trying to protect the son of the guy, the son of this gangster, and also protect this suitcase. Brad Pitt trying to get the suitcase, and he's a replacement for someone else who's off sick. And other complications happen. You've got this young woman who's a very dangerous person, and who everyone always underestimates because she looks like this young girl who is clueless. And it's just how these characters interact and how they go back and forth and how they develop through this situation, through this outlandish situation on a bullet train. But they can't get off the bullet train. Even when the train stops, they're not allowed off because there's people waiting at each station. And the whole situation seems to be rigged for some other purpose from what they've been told. So even though they're fighting each other, they've also tried to figure out what the hell is going on. And that leads to a lot of fun scenes. And the situation always develops, slowly but surely, over time. And it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it really is a big, silly film that knows that it's a big, silly film. It's based on a novel. There was some controversy because some of the characters were changed from Japanese to American, like Brad Pitt's character. But it doesn't really matter because the idea in this one is he's a stranger in a strange land, and you kind of need a movie star presence for this one to actually make it work. It is this idea of these various weird characters interacting and getting up to hijinks, trying to figure out why they're here. And just the situations develop. So the two brothers are a lot of fun, the English brothers, even though one of them's an American actor, but the accent's good. So Brian Tyree Henry, his name is, Tyree Henry, and Aaron Taylor Johnson is the other brother. They're both a lot of fun. Pitt's a lot of fun because he's underplaying, he understands exactly what he's in, what he's doing. So his kind of goofy charm comes to play. The young girl who's a danger to everybody is always a lot of fun whenever she turns up. The different Japanese actors that turn up in the train as well are all like top level good actors who know what they're doing. They know what film they're in, and they play along and everyone seems to be having a good time. But it's not that way in a film where that just seems to be having a good time at your expense. Here it's like they seem to be enjoying themselves in this fun, silly film. There is not much to it beyond that, though. I mean, that's the thing. It's wonderfully lit for like bright colours and silliness, just to tell you, don't take this too seriously. It's over the top, but never goes completely over the top. Even when it's been ridiculous, it's like, yeah, we know. This is part of the fun of the film. Is we know, we all know this is ridiculous, and it's knowingly ridiculous. And so the whole film just has that feel to it. It's just enjoyable. And it's a complete contrast to the other Bullet Train film, which has a lot more weight to it. And this one is just like, no, we're just going to be silly. That's it. We're just going to be silly, and that's all we've got for you. And there's even the twists in it are silly-ish, but there's the twists that can exist in a kind of Yakuza movie. It's that kind of thing. If you've seen like Takashi Miike Yakuza movies, they're much more outrageous and silly. But because of that genre, you expect that from this kind of film, either an American mainstream film or a film with Yakuza in it from Japan. a lot of them tend to enjoy the silliness of the situation, and that just comes through the film. A sense of it's based on a Japanese novel by maybe someone who's seen all these films, who knows just to have a bit of fun sometimes. So there's not much depth to it, but it delivers on what you want. I'm aware this is fairly short for this film, but there's not much more to say. I just thought it'd be funny to contrast it with the Bullet Train film, which is a much weightier film. So if you want something that actually has some depth, despite being a disaster film, the Bullet Train. If you want something nice and silly and fun, Bullet Train. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back with some more soon. That's me. Bye. End of broadcast.